requirements are, and so that would be something that we would want to work into this as well, so that people do really understand what am I getting into, what are going to be my roles and responsibilities, and also what's my time commitment, because as you all know, it's a significant time commitment to do these and serve on these boards in an appropriate manner.
That's a great piece to cannibalize from.
We liked it, thank you.
So it must be good.
Oh, absolutely, my country.
I just have one other kind of suggestion, or for discussion. We talked throughout having the mayor, council president, and city administrator review the applications and so forth. I would almost say, rather than designating like council president, why could we not, like each time something goes up, maybe
Rotate it?
Yeah, or ask, to somebody interested in kind of like we've done before.
We can do that. That one of the things that came up was having a consistent policy. And I think they went to council president. That model's used in other jurisdictions, but now that's perfectly fine if you want.
Could be changed just to council representative.
Council representative.
Yeah, if somebody wants to volunteer, and because it could be somebody has a time commitment.
Oh yeah. Somebody may be more passionate about
right.
this board versus that board, and
Or they may be content experts, within that.
Yeah.
So I just think if we could make that more generic.
A council representative.
More flexible.
Yeah.
I think that's
Is
good.
that a voted? I guess that's the next question. Do we want to say aye? Anyone want to, Go ahead, Cheryl.
Are you meaning at the meeting when we're looking for someone that we would have the council kind of vote to see who would?
Yes, I'd like to do it. Maybe, more so, what happens if now I've got 4 people that really want to be involved as opposed to 1 person. That's what I'm thinking of. If it's just, hey, I'd really like to do that, everybody says, yeah, okay, fine. Okay, that's easy. But if it's hey, I want to be involved, but oh boy, I want to be really involved too. So now we're going to a decision-making process of who's going to be on that board. Do we do a truly rotating process? Council member A was on the last appointment, council member B goes on the next, C, and so on. I'm not bothered either way. I just want to make sure we don't have the whole, a debate on who's going to be the selection.
Well, let me, because I actually want to back it up just a step before we get to that, because, it talks about mayor, council president, city administrator will provide 2 weeks to review applications that were received and are on file, okay? I think that maybe that's an opportunity where everybody would get a chance to review the people that are submitting applications. Each of the council members can make a recommendation. The standard has always been with advice from...
That's pretty cumbersome. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Thanks for that. But I'll tell you this. If you've got 2 weeks and you've got 8 representatives and everybody's just looking over resumes, and then people are just making recommendations, then the next step can be the mayor, the council president, and city administrator. But then now they've got a feel for who maybe some of the other different council members saw promise in. Whereas if we wait until we get down until the last minute, and we're bringing forward one, and everybody else hasn't had a chance to vet any of the other candidates, then you run into a situation where now you've got an up and down vote with the possibility of it being voted down.
Mayor, may I offer a suggestion based on previous experience that might address that? If the thinking is that we would like to have the council look at all the applicants, we probably want to do that not on the front end, but bring them all, because it's really challenging at that point for staff if we've got 5 council members and we get 5 applicants and we get 4 people, it's really hard for us to kind of regulate and really bring the input of everybody together as staff. And I think if we're going to have council be involved in all of them, it's probably going to be easier to do it at a council meeting instead of having that input go to staff. So in a previous jurisdiction, where the council was all involved in appointing, we just took all of the applicants to council, instead of having staff trying to decide what your votes are.
Well, and then council would make a recommendation, and then the committee would deliberate, and then the mayor would make the appointment. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, if
I would
council's,
just take that out of the process. I mean, it doesn't make any sense at that point to even bother.
no, it wouldn't, we wouldn't do, you would just bring them all.
Bring them all, and then you deliberate. and
You would deliberate
try to,
at-
You know, you do it publicly, you narrow it down to, you debate, you know, everyone's,
And-
relative merits or dismerits in front of that little eyeball on the ceiling and go forward. I don't know that that's necessarily a comfortable process to put volunteers through, but.
And it was tough when we
You know,
did it in
I just
another
don't-
jurisdiction.
I understand what Chris is saying as far as having visibility, everybody having visibility. I would almost recommend if that's the approach that we're going to take, maybe it's an approach of, here's 8 candidates that applied. If there's significant issues or heartburn with any of them,
Bring it up.
bring it up and get them removed versus
Right.
discussing, I don't know.
We have to be very sensitive to how
Right,
that's
I mean,
communicated
public
back, though,
record. These
because,
are
I mean, it
volunteers.
has to be one-to-one
Yeah.
communication
And
and
we want-
not
you don't
chained
wanna-
out by any means, so.
We don't want
Prevent
to,
that.
yeah, we want
Public
to
record.
take the process and make it so cumbersome that, to Christie's point, we are preventing that from a perception is reality perspective and future opportunities for citizens to get involved in the sign committee or planning commission or what have you. That's just my
And that was
opinion.
what, and I guess that's the, the question that I always ask, tend to ask, is what's the problem we're trying to fix? What I understood was that the challenge was making sure that there were, opportunities presented to a wider
I
group
agree.
of folks
Yep.
that may not otherwise be aware, that it's kind of a proactive recruitment rather than a, hey, if you know anybody, tell them to send me their, interest process, and then to add, a couple more sets of eyes to the review process, and then, go forward with a recommendation. That was my understanding of what staff was tasked to do.
I agree, and I think what staff's done here is, I mean, they've created, really efficiently, a step-by-step process, so they've created a simplified process to a complex problem. I mean, they simplified it and stepped in a way that there is going to be visibility. At each point, everyone will have access to the applicant, so we'll be able to see those individuals. But then we'll task people, the mayor, city administrator, and one individual from the council to go through those and come up with a final candidate. Now, the one question I did have that's not in here is, let's get to step 6, and that individual's voted down, the approval, because there's an approval vote at the end, if I'm reading this correct. What happens if that comes down? Where do we go from there?
You start.
Just
Start
start,
over.
You would go
start back
back.
over?
You
Is
would go
that,
back.
is that how it would be, is to start from scratch, or go back to the pool, or do we
Which
start
I
the
think,
process all the way over
Christie's
again?
point of having
Okay.
I think, with Christie, if here's a list of
The applicant.
applicants and, either, if their applications or whatever documentation, if you're gonna require resume or not, some folks don't have them, but I mean, at least the application document that talks out, here they are, then that gives an opportunity to filter to, I would say filter to Cheryl and not to the mayor, but
Agreed.
filter to Cheryl and say, ooh, here's this applicant may present an issue because of this conflict, or whatever, then
And I pull it.
then that can get,
And
and I think that helps then prevent or decrease the likelihood of a vote down at step 6. And I
Agreed.
think, and I agree, I think that would be a very, particularly for a volunteer to come out and say, I really want to help my city, and then stand up and, you know,